All right, perfect. Looks like we're recording now. So thank you for tuning in to Mothers Illuminated. I am here with Sandra Coffey today. So we're going to learn a little bit about what she does. This is obviously our mompreneur session that we're doing. So we'll talk all about what she does, how she manages it, and see where this conversation takes us. So Sandra, let's start off with what you do, right? And just let us know a little bit about that and kind of how you got there.
Cool, I will. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Yeah, I am a mompreneur, like you said. I suppose to go to the beginning of my career to kind of show why I'm where I am at now, I guess. I did start off working in newspapers, so working for other people. I did that for over 15 years, started off in my own local newspaper in the west of Ireland, and then progressed around to various other roles. And my last role was as a deputy editor in a large regional, but I did a massive detour through regionals, locals, nationals, broadcast, and ended up coming back to my home city as a deputy editor. So my experience is really, really based in journalism and writing content for publications. So I guess I started my career pre-Facebook, pre-Twitter. So the difference between then and now is just, it's two totally different worlds. So I made the leap into PR when I had my daughter, and traveling around while I did absolutely love the job, don't get me wrong, but I did a lot of court reporting in my last couple of years as a journalist. So that would involve traveling across the country, sometimes going abroad for stuff. And when I had my daughter, I thought it's kind of not really feasible. I mean, I do know other moms that do it, but for me, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be more present for her. And I had her when I was 41, so I was a bit late to the game. But thrilled she's here, obviously. But I had seen a lot of my friends, because some of my journalism friends had made the leap into PR. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't, and went back again. And I thought, you know what? I have so much knowledge in journalism, and I've seen so many bad pitches come into me throughout my career that I can surely help people get more visibility in the media by just sharing what I already know. So I made the leap into PR. And it means I can be at home more. I do travel to meet clients and I do travel to events, but it's not an everyday. It's like once every few months kind of thing. So that's me in a nutshell. I do PR coaching now for clients. I provide like a done for you service, but I also provide a service whereby I help them do it themselves, because I find while you might have a budget for 6 months to work with somebody to help you do all your PR, but then what happens after that? And it's consistency.
Right, exactly.
Really, the name of the game. Certainly in PR, you could do great for 6 months and then disappear, but those relationships that you've built up are all going to just fade away, and somebody else will fill that gap. So it's about learning how to carry on after your PR coach has finished with you. So I like to provide tools and easy to implement and easy to integrate ways of doing PR that doesn't feel like you've got to get so many things done before you can pitch to a journalist, because that's not been my experience. So that's kind of me in kind of.
No, it's interesting because, like you said, back then is so different to how it is now.
Oh, it's unbelievably different. Yeah.
And nowadays, like, one of the biggest things with marketing and brands is that personal brand, right? And so PR, I think, is more relevant today than it's ever been, especially if you're a smaller person, right? How do you compete with some of these bigger brands? You have to do it with a personal brand in most cases. So for most mom entrepreneurs who are watching this and they're kind of trying to figure out, this is a PR specialist, how can I, what's kind of like your generalized guidelines for most people in terms of how they can kind of get their brand out there more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of things where I kind of talk about PR from a journalist perspective, because that's where I find sometimes having that insider knowledge does benefit. So I share a lot of that on classes I do and in a book I've written. But let's say if you're starting from scratch and you're in the parenting niche, say, for example, and you provide like parenting advice or you help toddlers sleep, say, or something. I think it's very important to look at publications and podcasts and niche publications in your area and start to just look and see who does what kind of articles they've done. I wouldn't go really like 1 to 2 months, because if I say to someone, you need to look at something for the last 6, they're not going to do it. But if you at least become familiar with a publication and look back at 3, 4, 5 articles and just look at the headlines, see what they're writing about, see if they take a very informative stance or if they take more of a controversial stance, and see where you align with what they are doing. Often I find the first, I guess, hurdle people try to get over is they write a press release and they think in their head what I have to say is going to make the news, but they haven't actually looked around to see who else is doing the same thing, what my competitor has done that has worked for them. Could I do the same? So I think it's very important to kind of know what you're dealing with first before you do anything, even write a sentence, because you could spend ages writing a press release and then start sending it out and then realize, oh, I'm 6 months too late. This was already covered, something in relation to helping your toddler with teething or whatever, just to take an example. So I think it's really, really important to just realize what's within your niche. Then I always say the lowest hanging fruit, go for them first, especially if you're starting from scratch. You don't want to think, okay, I need to get into the Independent or I need to get into Forbes and a lot of the times you actually never, ever, ever need to be there because your audience isn't there. Your audience. I worked, one of my very, very first clients, they only ever built 3 relationships with 3 different media organizations. One was their local newspaper. And they discovered that a lot of their audience and people who bought and needed them came from there. So they built a fab relationship with them. And they did a lot of social collaborations. They did a lot of supplement features. They really dived deep in and said, look, we're experts. We do all of this stuff. Please call us when you're doing anything in relation to cooking, food, hosting parties. And when I worked with them, I said, do you have any event coming up? Have you got a couple separating 60 years of marriage, say? That's so unusual nowadays. Do you have triplets that are getting a cake from you? Because multiple births seem to be more common nowadays.
Yeah.
Do you have something really unusual? And you pitch that in to your local newspaper, they will absolutely fall over themselves to get the photo. Because photos in local newspapers really, really do really well. And then they will be put on social. They'll be put on the website. They will travel around within the massive audience that your local newspaper already has and has nurtured over the best part of maybe 10, 20, some newspapers in Ireland going 60, 70 years. So they have an audience that are super engaged and that they've nurtured for years. So you need to leverage that. So I would look there, a podcast that you can maybe get in early with if they're starting, or someone in your area that's doing stuff and you think, yeah, I'll go and have a coffee chat with her online and see if I can maybe help her with some content. And then a local radio station, because they often have a morning show where they're always looking for experts and they ask people to write in, tell us your problems, because they have 3 hours of a broadcast to fill. So they're always looking for experts. So I think if you look at what's around you first and then go, okay, look, I have a local newspaper. They don't have a parenting expert. I am one. Or I deal a lot with allergies, say kids' allergies is my my expertise. They never seem to do any articles about that, or food allergies. So you would, in that scenario, write an intro email, not selling anything, not doing anything, just go, hey, I'm Sandra Coffey. I am an allergy expert. I have this, and keep it very short and sweet, but tell them your expertise. And oftentimes when journalists look through emails, they pop in keywords, parenting, they put in allergies, say, for example, teething, whatever it is, whatever you mention in the body of your email, try and keep it keyword rich. So let's say you know that parenting is a really good keyword, but it probably is a fabulous keyword on, say, I don't know if you're on Pinterest and you can kind of find out a lot of information by doing a draft Pinterest ad. Excuse me. And if you pop in parenting, it'll tell you, oh, there's been X amount of pins in the last.
Yeah.
So you get an idea. And keep it keyword rich in your subject line and in the body of your email. And then you're easily found when an allergy story comes up. Let's say, God forbid, something happened in a restaurant and the child had to be rushed to hospital. They'll be like, we need an allergy expert. We need a parenting expert. We need somebody that's going to be able to give us 3 lines. And they will search in their email, and hopefully you will be one of the ones that will come up if your email is keyword rich. And always put your telephone number in, especially if you're dealing with journalists that are always on a tight timeline. They will email because they actually tend to prefer emails now more than calls. But if they're looking for something very last minute, it's call or it's WhatsApp. So always put your phone number in. That's kind of where I would start and try and build your own confidence. Because I find when I deal with people, they don't really have the confidence to put their message out there. But once they get a little bit of feedback from those within their local area and within their niche, they're like, yeah, your story is very interesting. Their confidence starts to grow a little bit. It does take a bit of time for this to work. But little by little, step by step, when you start to build your confidence, it really does get your message out there to the people who need you. Because you've got to remember, you're providing something that other people desperately need. It's worth putting your message out there.
Yeah. I love that too, because I think a lot of times, especially moms in particular, because, we think of ourselves as homemakers and taking care of our children, as mothers first, that it can be really easy to get that, imposter syndrome of an entrepreneur. And so I think that you're totally right. Getting that confidence of being able to put their message out there and talk to people is so important. And so you've got your daughter, you said?
Yeah, she's 6. So yeah, so the balancing act can be, it was tough at the beginning, very, very tough at the beginning. And I wasn't working at all then because I had her when I was 41. So definitely found that the tiredness was it really hit me really bad. Yeah. So I just put everything on pause for a while and kind of just really back in the last kind of 2 years, really, to be honest. But yeah, it's balancing things with her and also having her realize that when mommy works, it's not a bad thing. It's like, oh, well, you're working again, or, oh, you're working again now. And it's like, no, trying to change her mindset around, yes, mommy has to work, but, it is a positive thing. It is a good thing. Yes, we're not playing together, but we will once I have this done.
Yeah. I found that with my kids, we have a lot of conversations around money, and because I want them to understand the value of money. And I think it helps in a lot of different expectations. My oldest child is very gift oriented. She loves getting gifts. She loves getting new things. And so for her, it's like when she sees something, it's like, oh, I want to have that. I want to have that. I want to have that. And so having the conversation of let's look at it. How much money does it cost? Do you know how much money, how many hours we have to work to make that, things like that. And just that way she kind of understands. And it's funny because they get really upset. My husband goes to work every single day and they get really upset when he has to go. And so one day I sat down with them. I said, look, here's all of our bills. And she's 5 years old. She's very young too. But I showed her, and of course the numbers were super impressive to her, because anything, in double digits is huge. And, and so I'm showing her these numbers, and I'm like, this is how much money like we have to make just to survive, And she's like, oh my gosh. And so now she gets upset that he has to go to work, but she understands, And so we have a goal in our family of, me growing my business. So like I actually help moms make money at home. And so all the stuff that I do to kind of move my business forward and work on that. And I get to talk to her about that and say, when this money or when this business is big enough, daddy won't have to go to work anymore. He can be here and work with me, Wow. And then he's here with us. And so now it's like a total mind shift change, because she understands the value of money. She understands why we do it, and that we don't do it because we prefer it. It's more along the lines of, hey, we get to do something positive in the world, and we get to make money and support our family, and that's okay. You know what I mean? And like, if I have to go and do this podcast with you while my kids are playing in the other room, like just sit in there and be quiet and play so that I can get this done, because the more I can do of this and the more I'm able to, build and grow my business, the more, the sooner my husband can be home with us. Right. Yes. And so just having like those candid conversations, I think, is super important.
Yeah. And it gets them to realize from early on that, like, I suppose since COVID, most of us, more of us, I should say, are working from home. So they get to see firsthand that, us moms are working and we're doing lots and lots of good in the world. We're providing expertise. We're helping other businesses grow. Whatever we're doing, what we do is valuable. And I think certainly as my daughter gets older, she realizes that, my mom is working, but she's providing a valuable service to other people. I try and explain to her what PR is, and, oh, do you see that article there? Do you see that article there? So she's trying to get to grips with, well, we tell stories, and stories are really important. So that grabs her attention. But it's so important for them to realize early on that this is not a bad thing for you to understand. But maybe I should start showing her bills. Like that might actually help to drive home.
Well, and that was the game changer, honestly, because like I said, like those numbers are super impressive for, for the kids. Like it could be your internet bill, which is not even anything crazy, but for them, it's like, oh my gosh, that many dollars, like that's so much. So it was just funny how much she responded to it. I was like, wow, this is a great idea, Michelle. You should have done this earlier. But so when like in entrepreneurship, there's that balance, right? There's the balance of having freedom, which is amazing. You get to really structure your day, work your work around your life, but you also have to be disciplined enough to do it and make sure that you're getting done what needs to get done. So how do you kind of balance the freedom and the discipline while also raising children?
Yeah. Well, in fact, my child's in school now, so that is a real blessing. But I found when she wasn't in school, I really had to, like, I got up a little bit earlier in the morning when I could, when I got maybe, more than 3 hours sleep. And then I often found that if I started my day with something relaxing like a meditation, I've really got into meditation since I became a mother, and I have found like there's lots of meditations you can do. One's for focus, one's for energy. So like I have a list that I go to. So I always try and start my day with a 10-minute meditation to get me focused and to get me go, okay, look at this, what do I want to do today? And it just kind of calms you and goes, right, these are if I could get these 3 things done. So then I block out my time. So mornings I find are fab if I can get like some time there. Then in the middle of the day is kind of a bit of a different ball game because she's back for lunch. So we tend to spend some time together there. And then afternoons when she comes back, that's a bit less, it's kind of flexible, but my partner's also here. He's working from home. So we do share out the responsibilities. Let's say if I have a crazy busy day, he will, I suppose, not shoulder most, but we co-parent. So it's a 50-50 thing.
Yeah.
They do tend to come to mommy more. That's just natural, I think.
Yeah, biology at that point, right?
But evenings then I'm back on, and sometimes say with US clients, I tend to be back on in the evening. So definitely the flexibility. Back when I worked in journalism, 5:30 was cut off. Unless, you were still sitting in a courtroom or you were still at an event in the evening or you were going to an event in the evening at that point. But I find now I had to get into the mindset of I can work at 8:00 in the evening and it's not a bad thing. I'm not on a time pressure of someone else's time. So for me, that's been a game changer. It's been a bit of a mindset shift for me as well, because I'm often, it took me a little bit of time to go, okay, no, I'm not in this box anymore. I'm in my own box. Yeah, I'm doing my thing now. But yeah, it's been a journey that I've learned quite a lot on. And it's funny when people ask me, it's like, God, I wish I knew what I know now when I started. But I know it now, so it's not so bad.
Yeah.
But like over delivering, I've always been someone that like, oh well, if I do this, they'll be super happy. That's always been something that I've always struggled with, even when I used to work in newspapers. I'd always be, we'll just get one more quote from someone else, or I'll just stay on a little bit longer and finish this, or I'll wait for that photo to come in. Let's see if it's any good, if it's good or not.
Yeah.
So for me, putting boundaries down has been something that I've really, really had to work hard on, because, I should have, this is what I promised. I'm going to deliver. That's it. Rather than, I'll just do 3 more hours and not get paid.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been lots of learnings along the way, and I'm sure lots more to come.
Oh yes, I know. It's so funny because I agree wholeheartedly. I actually had a bookkeeping business that I did for about 3 years and scaled that up. And then I was like, I hate bookkeeping. Why am I doing this? Got rid of that one. I did a marketing business for 2 years and scaled that up. And I was like, this is a lot of fun, but like you're saying, I was like, it's so much work. Like, to get clients good results, it requires so much work and effort to not only create all the content, to run it by clients, talk to clients, run the business. And it was so much. And I said, and I was pregnant with my 3rd at the time. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, once this baby's here, I don't know how I'm going to manage this. And so I kind of started to dial it back. And now we've got 4 kiddos. And I'm like, we're diving deep into the mom coaching space, because this is where I really feel like I can make this scalable, right? And I think that, like, for me, when I work with other moms, that's one of the biggest things. It's like, you don't want to spend 40 hours a week working, right? You want to have time with your kids. You want to be able to do these things. And so how do you kind of have that balance of freedom with your discipline? And I think what I have found, and what I'm, teach my clients, is you have to focus on like the income producing activities, right? Do like exactly what you said, set up those boundaries with your clients. This is what you're delivering, over deliver on the promise, but have that secret boundary with yourself in terms of what that over delivery looks like, right? Because you don't want to keep going and then, promise something, go a little bit more than that, so that they feel like, wow, this person gave my all, and you are giving your all, but you still have those boundaries with yourself. And then at that same time, setting up so many automations. And I think that's where people, especially, I see it all the time. They're like, well, I don't know, like AI sounds kind of weird, or I don't really know what to do with it. AI has made it so easy to get so much done in a short amount of time, and so just like learning those skills of how to work with AI properly, which AI systems to use to automate as much as you can, automating lead generation with different funnels and email lists, and having this thing to nurture. And, all about this because you're in PR, you understand kind of what all that looks like, and just really working with people to set up those systems that work for them so that they can take that time and they can clock out when they want to clock out, I think that's one of the biggest struggles for a lot of mom entrepreneurs is, how do I balance trying to build a business and not knowing it all, while also trying to raise my kids and, be with my family. So if you were to talk to a mom entrepreneur who needs help with some PR stuff, what would be the advice that you would give them?
I guess the first thing I would ask them is what is their main focus? I find as mompreneurs, sometimes we have lots of different things going. we see something, maybe it's shiny objects, and maybe I'm speaking on behalf of myself maybe here, but
I think we all go through that. That's
yeah,
yeah.
we're attracted to different things. So I'd say, what is the two main things? Like, obviously, get to know them first, get like a little bit of a bio going in my head, and chat to them. And I actually, when I meet somebody initially, I actually interview them like I would interview someone. I interview like a journalist would interview you. So I give a heads up in advance. I have a list of questions. Some of them you might not want to answer, but I'm trying to get your story. Because if I can get your story and I can see some angles that we can pull from, then we've got something to work with. But if you keep your kind of business speak on all the time, and you don't kind of open the curtains a little bit and let me see behind, maybe you started your business when you were, I don't know, after you just had a miscarriage, God forbid, but let's just say, for example, or you found out that your child had a diagnosis and you realize, I actually have to scale this business now because we've got a lot more expenses. So it's that kind of human interest side to the person, especially us mompreneurs, that we have so much strengths, so many strengths. We've got so many things that we've gone through that I feel sometimes we scan over them and go, yeah, I had a insane labor, I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. And in the end, it was an emergency C-section. And, we have so many good stories. So I find a lot of times people, when they start to talk to me, they tell me about their strategies, and that's all good. And that's all good for me to know. But then I'm like, right, let's find out about you. Because that is what the journalist is going to want to hear first. And then they're going to ask, oh, what actually, what have you got to give our audience? So I often try and ask, some questions around their personal life, if they have any kids, or if they've any, like what their experiences were of, like rearing a family, or, if they've had, excuse me, a relationship breakdown. It's funny enough, I've been dealing with some queries from journalists around that today. So I'm kind of in the thick of it. I know what journalists are always looking for. So if you had a financial problem, now oftentimes people are quite sensitive to sharing that kind of detail. But they may want to share it when their business is up and running. There's two very popular columns in UK newspapers where people share their financial struggles, and the journalist gets an expert in to answer them. So it's kind of like free advice in a way, but you get great publicity. One of them is in the Times, the other one's in the Telegraph. So both of those are, if you had your kind of, I suppose, your hat on with, okay, I'm happy to share this, and I'm going to get absolutely fantastic PR coverage out of it. It's getting to know them as a person, because if you pitch in a story that's very marketing and even kind of PR heavy, journalists get these millions of them a day from big corporations that are selling something, they're launching a new product. They get all that kind of stuff. They get something that's very personal into their inbox. It's an open. It's like if you put, I don't know, some people put case study, some people put personal story, or you just give the line, I saved 50,000 in 6 months. Do you want to know how I did it? And they're like, that's an instant open, because I write about, some people bury that line in a press release. And I'm like, this story right here. So I asked them to send me some stuff they've written. Let's say if they've done a press release before, or they've sent an email to a journalist. And I look at that and say, okay, this is why I think it didn't work. Or you use something over here on social that was brilliant, that maybe you should have pitched into this publication, and maybe we can still do that now. But it's kind of figuring out the one or two things they want to be known for, and then diving deeper in to go, well, would you be comfortable with this? Because I often say, when people start to open up and start telling me their story, and I'm like, oh my God, there's some great stories here, then it's like, I'll come back to them and say, look, would you be happy If this was the head, so I'll give them 3 or 4 headlines. Would you be happy seeing this headline on a billboard in Times Square? Because if you aren't with it being there, if you're not comfortable with it being there, then we can't go with it. Because sometimes I ask them maybe something, can you give me something, your most controversial opinion on teething? Say. And I'm like, right, I'll go away, I'll write some headlines and let's see if you'd be happy. Because if you send something in that is slightly off the beaten track or slightly different, that will get open, but you've got to be super happy that you would be seeing that, because that would be most likely the headline. And if you're happy with that and you're not comfortable with that, then we've got to dial it back, and maybe you might be comfortable with doing that in a year or 2 years' time when you've got more confidence and you go, no, I do have an opinion about teething and I'm happy to share it now. Let's go, because I've been interviewed here, I'm happy with how I'm coming across to journalists, and now I'm happy to be a bit controversial or a little bit different. Doesn't have to be controversial, but just something slightly different to the usual norm.
So if somebody wanted to submit something to their local publications, what's typically the channels to do something like that? Would they just go onto the website for the whatever the newspaper is, and I mean, do they have like submit forms? How does that whole process work?
Oftentimes I would say, if it's a free newspaper, then fantastic, download the latest issue and see what's going on, what's happened in the news within that week, and maybe even look at maybe 1 or 2 others if you can, if you've got time, and then find the person that you think would be the person for you. So let's say you're doing something in finance, so you would go straight to the financial business section, and normally in your local newspaper it would be one journalist that would be writing a lot of that content. So you could find them through the website. You can do the old-fashioned way and ring. I don't often recommend ringing, but it's so rare nowadays that it's like when you actually ring, they're just so surprised. It's like, oh my God, someone rang me today. But I don't often recommend that as a first intro. Go to LinkedIn, see what they're posting there, have a bit of a nosy around there. And Twitter is where, or X as I should say, is where a lot of journalists hang out. So I would go have a hunt around on social, but definitely start with the actual publication and find the person that is writing about what your subject area is, and introduce yourself. Often when I say to people, go and introduce yourself, give like a 2-line paragraph intro. This is what I do, and this is how I help people, i.e. help your readers to do X. So help them save, help them find the holes in their, in their savings and where they could be saving money. Or you could be an energy expert and you go into people's homes and say, oh my God, you need to change this fridge. This fridge is costing you X amount of money every week or every year. So the first 2 lines shouldn't be something around, shouldn't be very salesy. It should be more, I'm a financial expert with X amount of years of experience, and I can help your readers save whatever it is. And they're like, oh, okay. So it's not very salesy. And then maybe give 3 or 4 ideas of how you can actually help readers. So it gives the journalist, when they're reading it, an idea of, oh yeah, that could be an article. Oh yeah, okay. So you're kind of planting seeds as opposed to sending a 500-word email that no one's going to read. And you plant the seeds in, bullet points ideally, and separate them out. Give lots of space, so there's lots of room to read stuff. And then at the end, put your bio. So your bio can be that little bit more salesy. Say if you've helped, I don't know, 30 clients in the last year, save X amount of money, that would be something I would definitely have I would have that in the intro too. But just make it super clear and try and make sure that you're telling them how you can help the readers of that publication, because essentially the journalist is the middle person for you to get to the readers, to get to your audience, to get to your, hopefully, sales down the line. So kind of think of the reader and how the journalist is going to help that person.
Mhm.
slight change to what you would normally, what I used to see coming in was just so salesy when I used to work in journalism. So when I ask people to, okay, now you're going to go and do your pitch, follow this template, it
Yeah.
generally seems to work better.
Yeah, that makes sense because you want to stand out, like you were saying. So if you just send in what everybody else is sending in, you're just going to end up on the stack, right? But if you send something in that's a little different, people will actually reach out and engage with you. It's kind of the same thing with marketing too. It's like if you send out an ad that looks like an ad, people are just scroll right on by, right? On social media. People don't really stop for that. You need to have something that's got a really strong hook that either shocks someone, connects with them, something that really draws them in and makes them stop scrolling. And usually it's something that's not salesy, right?
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, you kind of have to realize that, okay, I'm writing my PR email now to the journalist, and I've got to just take out the salesy stuff and just talk like I would normally talk. It's not an easy shift to make, especially if you're kind of going between different things. But I kind of give prompts whereby, if you're struggling with this, then have a look at these prompts and see, do these help you at all, or follow the template, or I say, look at this is what I have used in the past, or this client has used, obviously with personal details taken out. And there's lots of ways of kind of helping yourself think differently about how you write those emails and how you write that content for the journalist. It just takes a bit of practice to go, oh no, hang on, I can't talk like that. That's not going to get me anywhere. This is going to be a waste of my time. I need to slow down and think, okay, look, I helped one client save 2,000 in a week. That's the story. That's what the journalist wants to hear, because they're going to tell that to the readers, and the reader's going to, oh my God, I want to find out how she did that.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I find it's definitely a bit of a leap, but once you start seeing the results, and sometimes the journalist might get back and go, oh my God, yes, we would love to work with you, but it might not happen there and then. I find often people expect instant results, and it's a case of that's not how PR works. Now, when you build your relationships with your local sector and with your niche, you will start to see results, but you cannot expect it instantly. And that's something I think, you got to get your expectations right first. And I always tell people, when I work with people first, they think, oh, I need to be in Marie Claire, or I need to be in Grazia, or I need to be in, and I'm like, hang on a second, who's your audience? Who are we targeting?
Yeah.
You can find out either by asking, let's say you want to pitch into Grazia, for example. You can find out through their advertising department who their audience is. Sometimes you're kind of guessing and going, oh, maybe it's like the 20 to 35 female with lots of money and no children. And, you're like, just ask them, who are they looking for? And then you'll match up, because you'll find that their advertising departments, they will share those details with you, but you'll have to go in on the back of, oh yeah, I'm going to place an ad. Can you tell me? But there's ways of getting this information straight from them. And who knows, in 5 years' time, you might actually take an ad, who knows? But, and find out, okay, my audience is definitely not there. You need to kind of do everyone is like, oh, well, I see such and such a person is in Forbes. I'm like, fantastic, but how long are they doing PR? What did they send in? Have they said something that's super different to what other people have said in the past? I said, okay, let's go and look at the article. And we'll often kind of comb through and go, and then be like, oh yeah, don't think I'd be happy saying that. Or, there's a lot of, expectation when you start, but then you've got to realize it's a consistency that you need to build into your business.
Yeah.
And then you start to see the results. And when I say to people, you really need to practice and start in your niche and start in local, because one of the things people always forget, and when I say, oh, I don't want to pitch to local newspapers, and I'm like, You've got to remember, I started in local, but I actually ended up in broadcast 3-4 years down the line. So I said, this person you're talking to now, you don't know where they're going to be in 6 months.
Yeah.
You've got
That's
to
true.
remember that this person, they're also looking to progress in their career. They're looking to grow. They're looking to work for Financial Times or wherever they want to go to. You building the relationship with them as a local journalist means that they will always, always remember you.
Yeah.
You're the person that gave them that good story. You're the expert. You were in their mind,
Mhm.
and they will move on. And when you go to pitch them when they're in Financial Times or wherever, it's an easier selling. And by then, you'll have had your little bit of coverage in the local, and you'll be doing your bits with your niche, and you might have some influencers on board by then, and you might be really growing out. And in the meantime, this person has been promoted to maybe a new role within that regional group of newspapers, and you can go, oh, maybe I might have a chance of getting in this publication, and you have an in already. So you need to just take out the mindset of I don't want to be there. I want to be here.
That is so valuable. Absolutely. Because you're right. It's all about networking and knowing the right people, and you never know where someone's going to go with their career. So
they are always progressing. I mean, I share my story with people I work with, and I say, yeah, I started off in a teeny tiny place. That's not where I ended up. And you'll find a lot of these people, and often the teeny tiny places have the most engaged audience.
Yeah, because it's super niche, right?
Yeah, and they're the people you need to speak to, and they're the people you need to get on your email list. They're the people you need to come to your webinars, etc. They're the people. So it's often knowing the right area as opposed to, it's great to be able to share with your friends I was in Harper's Bazaar.
Yeah.
If you don't get anyone coming to you and asking you anything, then it's not really been worth it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and they would have pushed it out to loads of people, but they're just not the right people. So you got to kind of realize that that local journalist is going to push it out to an audience that could be super, super valuable for you, but you just haven't realized it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And then one last question, then we'll start wrapping everything up. But, talking to mom entrepreneurs, that's kind of the PR advice. But what's the general mom entrepreneur advice? If there was a mom that came to you and said, look, I'm starting a business and I have no idea what I'm doing, what's your piece of advice?
Oh, God. That's a good question. Let me think. I think getting systems up and running. I mean, and definitely networking, having systems for like you said earlier, lead generation, having things going in the background, making sure you're always generating an email list. I was very, very slow to do that at the start. I was like, no, I'm not going to need it because I'm going to do all this PR. But when people come to your site, you can't get your details. You've got to be able to, always think email list. Yeah. And then knowing when to get help. I was really, really, really bad at that at the start. I was like, no, I can do everything. I can absolutely do everything. This, and like it's definitely bootstrapped from the ground up. And I was like, I've been in journalism for so long. I can do all of this. And then like you're going to burn out super, super fast. And knowing to go, right, I need to get like a babysitter in 2 hours a day. Can I afford that? And what will I do in those 2 hours? And plan out your time and know if someone offers help and if they're the right fit for what you need, grab it with both hands, because I wish I had taken more help and realized that I needed it. I just thought, why would I can do this. I'll just work until 11 o'clock at nighttime.
Right. Duh. Why wouldn't I? Right?
Continually exhausted. Systems, get rest, and know when to ask for help and know when to go and get help.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. So if someone's trying to get a hold of you and they want to use you or pick your brain for PR, where can they find you?
I'm pretty active over on Twitter. So at Sandra Coffey is where you can tag me there, or I'm doing a class on jumpstarting your PR is what I've called it. and that's happening on November 11th. So I have, is it okay to give the website link, or like I can
Yeah, we'll put the website link in the description as well. I'm going to be honest, this will probably end up happening and showing after November 11th, so that they might miss the workshop, but definitely we'll put the link to your website. And then, I'm assuming you put up your workshops in there all the time.
Yeah, I'll be having another one in the new year. So
yeah,
absolutely, I'll be putting the details in the same place. But I also have other things they can get there as well. So
perfect.
Yeah. So
well, thank you so much for being on.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting.
Absolutely.